All right, hey, I just wanted to check in because I finished another book, and that is Swan Song by Robert McCammon. Now, Swan Song actually took me a little longer than anticipated. I should have had this done like a week and a half ago, but I got kind of bored at the end, and then I had a lot of stuff going on, like I went on a camping trip and didn't really feel like reading on the camping trip, and then I don't know. I actually finished this a couple days ago, and I'm just now getting around to even reviewing it. I'm just going to start this off by saying my overall thoughts on this are meh. It's all right. This is nothing special. I really enjoyed the first half of this book, I think, and then the second half kind of dragged on a little bit, and I kind of lost interest in the plot. Maybe that was just me and the timing of when I was reading this, but it really just kind of stopped interesting me at a certain point. So the overall premise of Swan Song is that all of the countries decide to launch their nukes, and it's like a World War III kind of scenario. Most people die, and there's a few groups of survivors, and there's some other survivors out there and stuff. We really follow three main groups of characters. There's Josh and Swan, which Swan Song is named after, Swan. I'll start with Swan, actually. Swan is a little girl. She's really kind of the main character of this. She has always had this ability to, like, feel for nature, and she can, like, feel the grass when it's being cut. She feels that it's in anguish, and she has this real, like, natural attachment to the natural world, I guess. And it comes into play throughout the story. I'll go into it in a little bit, but I'm not going to spoil any of this, by the way. Josh is a professional wrestler, like a WWE type wrestler, which I really liked. He is probably one of my favorite characters, almost because of that reason. You can see, actually, I have a couple action figures right there. They're always in frame, no matter where I film. You can see a couple action figures in the background. But Josh was a professional wrestler. He's a huge black dude, is how he's described. I think his wrestling name was Black Frankenstein, if that gives you any indication of how he may look. I picture just kind of this big dude that's walking around with this little girl named Swan. They actually meet because they happen to be in this, like, grocery store area. I can't remember exactly what it was. It's kind of like a mom and pop grocery store, but it's owned by one guy, and they happen to be in the basement when the nukes go off and everything kind of collapses on them. They spend a few days there before they get themselves free and start their part of the adventure. Another group is Sister. She was like a crazy homeless woman in New York who happened to be in the sewers at the time when it all happened, when the nukes went off, and she survives because of that. She comes out and she finds this glass, like, ring-like thing with that's really, really beautiful. Everybody describes it as, like, the most beautiful thing they've seen. It has jewels inside of it. She takes it with her, and when people touch this glass thing, they have, like, visions that are very, very clear, and they have a sense of peace and calm, and that's kind of a driving point in her side of the story. She eventually meets up with a man named Paul, who is also part of her group, becomes part of her group. He was in, like, a hunting cabin in the woods, and ends up finding her on the road, taking her back to his cabin where he had kind of been collecting some of the people that were walking around. Eventually, Sister says, we need to leave. We need to keep continuing on and see if there's civilization or what we can find out there. She had this driving force to keep going forward, and part of it was because of that glass thing she found. So Paul tags along with her. The other group, the last group of main characters, is Colonel Macklin and Roland, and they were in a bunker, like military-like nuclear bunker, essentially, up in Blue Mountain, Idaho. And I don't know if Blue Mountain, Idaho is a real place, by the way, but they describe it as, like, outside of Idaho Falls. It very well may be a place. I've just never heard of it. But Colonel Macklin and Roland survive, along with some other people within this this compound. They lose electricity and stuff inside of it. They spend a long time inside of their bunker. Roland has this like crazy dedication to Colonel Macklin, saying he needs to do what the king wants, and he has this attachment to this guy to the point where he kills his own parents at the beginning. He shoots and shoots at his own parents at the beginning without even noticing that he's doing it. Really, he doesn't even think about who they are anymore already. He becomes a very important character. Colonel Macklin's a very important character, and he founds essentially a new army called the Army of Excellence, and they are on a rampage against a few other factions of kind of just like taking over the world, and they're slowly amassing this army. And that's kind of how their story is going while these other two stories are going on. There is a time jump, a time skip in this at some point. It goes ahead 7 whole years, which is a crazy time skip, especially because everything really kind of feels the same after the time skip. There's some changes, obviously. Some things have progressed, but a lot of the main points kind of stayed the same, and it didn't really feel like it was super necessary. It did give the time story to develop this illness called Job's Mask. I believe that's how you pronounce it, is Job's Mask, which is like this disease-looking substance essentially that's taking over some people's faces, and it is making them like swell up, and they can barely see out of one eye slit. So that is something that's happening, and it's only happening on their faces. It's not happening on the rest of their body. There is one other character that we see every couple times. His name is I can't remember his name in the story actually, but I think it's the man with the scarlet eye or something like that. He is like hunting down Sister, trying to get the glass from her. He is definitely one of the characters specifically that I would draw a comparison to The Stand, which is actually right here. This whole book is very, 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 very reminiscent of The Stand. It feels like The Stand, only like weaker. If you want to read a story like this, I would recommend The Stand over this. And it's nothing really against this book. It just kind of didn't have the character development I would have looked for. In my opinion, most of the characters, besides maybe Sister, didn't really change a whole lot from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. They strengthened their relationships a bit more, and some of those things that you would think would naturally happen, but none of them really did anything differently. It was just they were kind of the same characters throughout, which is fine, I guess. Maybe he didn't want to develop those characters or have them grow or change, but it just was very clear that that was not the focal point in the story, at least in my opinion. I personally really did enjoy the world he set it in. I like the post-apocalyptic sort of America. I think it's very interesting. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. But like I said, I really would just read The Stand again if I wanted to read something like that. This was my first Robert McCammon book, and I really did enjoy the writing. I think he is a terrific writer. Describes the locations and the settings and what's going on very well. It's very easy to picture in your head, very easy to read. I really appreciated that, especially with how long of a damn book this is. It is a very, very dense book. But it wasn't hard. It wasn't difficult. It was just a long story. And like I said, I really did enjoy the first half of the book, and maybe even a little more than the first half of the book. That second part of the book just really after the time skip maybe is where it happened for me. I just kind of stopped caring a whole lot. I saw where it was going, and I kind of just wanted to get there. But there was a lot of substance in between where I was at and the end of the book. So I kind of got a little bit burned out because of that. And maybe that's just my own personal thing. It's probably nothing against the book. I am still very excited to read more of his books. I know that Boy's Life, I believe, is the name of another one of his books. I really want to read that, especially because I believe it's a little shorter than Swan Song. But overall, I did enjoy most of my time with this book. I'm glad I read it. I just wish it was slightly shorter maybe, or maybe less drawn out. But I don't know. Who knows? Everybody has their own preferences. That's just how I felt reading this. But anyways, I'm going to leave that there. I appreciate y'all for checking out this video and staying this long, and thanks.